Hi there, I'm Billy J. Miller, author, photographer, and speaker from East Central Alberta. I am so excited to be co-hosting this Farm Kids series with my good friend Caitlin Dubin. We hope you love this Farm Kids series we're working on for you. I've written 4 books that celebrate farm life and the amazing people on them. You can find them anywhere books are sold or by visiting my website, www.billijmiller.com.
Hi, I'm Caitlin Dubin, and this is the Rural Woman Podcast. I'm a first-generation farmer who married into agriculture. Born and raised in a city, I was so unfamiliar with where my food came from, but I was determined to figure it out. Through my journey into agriculture, I saw women who were strong but humble, often taking a back seat. To me, these women were leaders who deserved a seat at the table. I created the Rural Woman Podcast to share the voices of women in an industry whose stories often went untold. The rural entrepreneurs who live and breathe their work, full of grit and pride. We come here to share our stories, to be in community with each other, to be challenged and inspired, but most importantly, to be celebrated and to be heard. We may not all live, farm, ranch, or homestead the same, but we are all connected. We are rural women, and our stories are worthy of being told. Hey everyone, welcome to a special series of the Rural Woman Podcast. When I was brainstorming how I wanted to celebrate the 5th anniversary of the Rural Woman Podcast, I thought it would be really fun to highlight a different age demographic of rural women. So this month, we are featuring some very special young rural women on the show. This series was inspired by a dear friend of mine and a friend of the podcast, Billy J. Miller. Billy is an author and a speaker who has been captivating audiences and readers by telling the stories of farm life since she married a 4th-generation Alberta farmer in 2010. Billy's first appearance on the Rural Woman Podcast was all the way back in the beginning, episode 3, back in 2019, which we have linked in today's show notes. In her 4th book, Celebrating Farm Life, Billy examines what farm life is like through the eyes of children, only not just interviewing today's children. This book tells the stories of farm kids from the 1920s all the way up to 2022. Peppered with hilarity and frank honesty only present-day kids can muster, this book is filled with stories that will enlighten you, warm your heart, and make you laugh out loud. You can find a link to the book Farm Kids, Stories from Our Lives, as well as Billy's other work in today's show notes. Our next guest on the Farm Kids series is Kate Miller. Kate is a 10-year-old farm kid who loves her life in the country. Taylor Swift, family vacations, and their family dog named Bubbles. She hails from South Miller Farm, her family's mixed cattle and grain operation in East Central Alberta. Her dad is a 4th-generation farmer who grew up on his family's farm that began in 1911, and her mom is an author who writes books all about farmers and farm life. Kate loves the freedom and fun that comes with living on the farm, but like her mom, she loves vacations in cool cities too. Without further ado, my friends, let's get to this special episode with Kate Miller.
Welcome to the Rural Woman Podcast. I am so excited to be co-hosting this episode with Caitlin, not only because I love Caitlin, but because I really, really love the interviewee. This is my youngest daughter, Kate Miller, we're interviewing for the Farm Kids series. She is 10 years old, and this is her podcasting debut, isn't it? This is your first time on a podcast. How do you feel about that?
I don't know.
I don't know. You'll answer that when the podcast is done, right? And you'll let us know how you felt about it. Well, yes, thank you for having us on. So We are interviewing Kate today.
Kate, I am so excited that this is your podcast debut. Billy, was the Rural Woman podcast your podcast debut as well?
You know what, Caitlin? I'm sure that it was. Yeah.
Yeah, 5 years ago. Wild. Kate, you probably don't remember 5 years ago when your mom was on the podcast.
Probably not.
No,
It'd have been
probably not.
5. Yeah.
Not caring about those kinds of things.
No.
So, Kate, your mom introduced you a little bit. You're 10 years old, but I want you to tell me a little bit more. So, what are your favorite things to do on the farm? And tell us all about yourself.
My favorite things to do on the farm is jumping on the bales because Dad stacks them up in pyramids, and me and Madeline, my sister, we can go and play on them and jump around on them.
That's fun. What kind of bales are they? Do you know?
Well, there's lots of different ones. There's some barley and all different ones.
Are there better bales to jump on depending on what kind of bales they are? Okay, which ones are the best ones?
The ones that are the best ones is usually barley because the peas are really scratchy and they kind of hurt.
Oh.
I would have never known.
No, me either. You know a lot more about bales than I thought you did. That's awesome. I was going to say for the listeners, why don't you fill them in on what kind of farm we live on?
We live on cows and crops, beef and cattle, or
You betcha.
beef and grain farm.
Do you know what kind of cows you have?
I think Simmental and Charlet. It's kind of all mixed in.
Nice mix now.
Very cool. And what kind of crops do you grow? You obviously grow barley and peas.
Barley, peas, wheat, sometimes a couple fields of flax. Yeah.
Oats.
Oh, yeah.
sometimes.
Oats sometimes.
And what's the yellow one?
Canola.
Lots of canola, hey?
Yeah.
So pretty. So pretty. That is a diverse crops that you have up there, as well as, all of the cattle. I'm curious, what's your favorite crop that you grow?
I like flax because it's kind of purpley blue, and purple's my favorite color.
That was my next question. What's your favorite color? You already answered that. See, you're a podcast pro already, Kate.
He is, really.
So, Kate, I get to ask you some of the questions that are in your mom's book. We decided to flip-flop of who's going to ask these questions because, it might be awkward to answer them if your mom asks them. So I'm curious, what, in your opinion, is the best thing about your mom?
The best thing about my mom is, when she makes ribs. And yeah.
Excuse me.
She makes good ribs.
Yeah.
Amazing. What do they taste like? What kind of sauce does she put on them?
Well, there's I think it's oyster sauce and
lots of oregano.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's my secret. Lots of oregano.
Perfect. The secrets of the Miller family cookbook are being exposed here on the podcast. That's awesome. So your mom is a good cook and she makes good ribs. That's awesome. What do you think is the coolest thing about your dad?
Yeah, that we can drive tractors with him and combines and the seeder and stuff. Which the seeder, you don't really have to drive it until you get to the end and you have to turn it because you just click buttons and it goes by itself and doing everything all by itself.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
I just think that's so cool. And you're right. That is the coolest thing about having a farm dad is being able to drive tractors and combines with him and all that stuff. Does he let you drive sometimes?
Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool.
And helping feed cows, too.
Yeah, helping feed cows. And I really right now it's actually calving season and there's so many little baby calves running around in the field.
Right. Do you get to go help with the baby calves? Do you get to go see them?
Yeah, we can go see them and we have to tag them. Well, they're pretty little. And some of the moms get really protective and get quite crazy.
I'm sure you have a story or two of the crazy mama cows, hey?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Kate, do you remember how old you were the first time you saw a calf being born?
I don't remember, but I was probably like 4, 3.
Yeah, I bet you were 2 or 3, to be honest. You might not remember, but yeah.
Very cool.
I love that aspect of farm kids. And I was just thinking about it yesterday as I was outside. The girls were at grandma's for the day baking pies, which was really awesome for me and dad because they always come home with some of their new craft, which I love. Yeah. But I was thinking about that as I was outside watching some calves be born yesterday morning. And I thought it's so great for farm kids, right? Which is one of the biggest reasons I wanted to write this book, to encapsulate some of the really unique memories that kids will grow to have and, as they move forward into their life. And I thought, like, yeah, my kids have been watching calves be born forever. And just watching the whole life cycle of it, right? Like, not all of them turn out to be a good situation. Sometimes a calf will die when it's born, or, shortly after it's born, or, and it's all tough lessons for kids, but yet it's such valuable information, isn't it? And
Right.
me and the girls, one of our favorite things about calving season is I always joke that I'm the social emotional department. We're the social emotional unit. And if and when a calf is born and is having a lot of trouble, for example, a couple of weeks ago, this little sweetie was born, but it got really cold that night. So the top of his ears were frozen.
Oh, yeah.
So he had to come in the house. And well, we love it when that happens. So I have special outside blankets and I set them up in the porch, and the little baby calf lays down there. And before you know it, this thing's wearing a little South Miller farm hat and covered up in blankets and has got 2 little girls and a mom cuddling with it. And oh my goodness. So we never mind when one is.
Yeah, when we were waiting at the end of our laneway for the bus to come, Granddad came driving by in the silage truck, and he got out and he opened the passenger door, and it was the first calf, and he was pretty early for usual, and he opens the door and there's a little calf that's like, his ears were just ice.
Oh.
And yeah, he was so adorable.
That's so sweet.
A little calf needed rescuing.
Yep. Just waiting for the bus and granddad drives by. I love that, Kate. It's so sweet.
It is the best. Yes. So you answered the question, what kind of farm do you live on? So that's the other thing. Kate did do an interview, and Madeline both did interviews for me for my Farm Kids book. And for your listeners, it's Farm Kids Stories from Our Lives. It's the most recent book out of the 4 that I've written, all about farm life. And what is the best part of living on a farm? Did we cover that one? I know in the book?
I don't think we have quite yet.
Yeah, I know in the book you said that you had a big yard, but
Well, yeah.
now that you're 10 and much wiser, what else would you say?
Well, having a big yard, yeah, that we can play in all the time. And having calves come into the house.
I guess you really did answer that question already, Kate, because I'm jealous that you had a baby cow in your house. I don't get to have baby cows in my house.
Yeah. And just being able to like have infinite things to do all the time.
Isn't that the truth?
Never a dull moment. That you are the daughter of an author. Actually, you are an author yourself. And we'll get to that a little bit later about co-authoring a book, because that's pretty cool. But
absolutely.
Infinite things to do. There is always things to do on a farm, for sure.
I could tell you more about that in a few minutes too, about Katie's brilliant use of words, and at such a young age, because my youngest daughter was speaking in full sentences at 2, and I'm not joking. It was really unbelievable. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, Auntie Kim came and I was so little, and I walked up. She was unloading her suitcases or something, and I walked up to her and said, "Can I bring in your suitcase?" And she was like really freaked out because I was so little.
Oh, so hilarious.
I love that.
Have any pets? You had different pets back when we wrote this book. But
yeah.
Tell her about our pets now.
So right now we have Bubbles, our Bernese mountain dog, who's very friendly. And we have Wink, a cat, and Rosie, another cat.
Very cool. Very cool.
What would you say the coolest machine is on our farm?
I like the cedar.
Do you like it because it drives itself with a GPS?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Hey.
That does make it pretty incredible. Ooh, I love this one. When I asked you this question in the book, I asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? And your answer then was a farmer, a teacher, or a vet, or all three. What would you say now?
I want to be a lawyer.
Oh,
Yeah, I love that.
that is telling for the next number of years for you, Billy.
It is. And I'll tell you 100% with her quality of arguing now, like she has got a talent. Like she has got an incredible talent. I will ask her, for example, why have you not emptied the dishwasher yet, for example? Like your chores are to empty the dishwasher this week. Why did you not empty the dishwasher? She will not only give me an incredibly convincing argument why she didn't empty the dishwasher, but she will convince me that it was wrong of me to even ask her. It's really incredible. And before you know it, I'm just sitting there shaking my head thinking, oh my gosh, this kid needs to be in a courtroom because she's got a real talent.
There you go. I'm sure you're thinking this while you're emptying the dishwasher.
Absolutely. And then I'm pondering it while I empty the dishwasher for her. Yeah, she decided a while ago, that you want to be a lawyer, huh?
Very cool.
I have a question for you. Are you always on the hunt for great kids' books, somehow related to the theme of farming or farm life? Well, I have a great one for you. My name's Billy J. Miller, and I'm Canadian author and speaker from a mixed cattle and grain farm in East Central Alberta. Bubbles Took a Trip, a mostly true tale about an adventurous dog from the Canadian prairies, is a special project by myself and my daughters, Madeline and Kate Miller. This is a mostly true story about our real-life dog named Bubbles. She is a beautiful and brilliant 10-year-old Bernese Mountain Dog. One day, just before the pandemic started, she was accidentally dog-napped by a nice lady who was worried about her being on the highway near our farm. Not knowing who her owners were, she drove Bubbles to her home, 4 hours away. We decided to make a book about the crazy story about her adventure and how we managed to get her back. I hope you'll join us and think about this book as your next purchase for your kids or your next birthday gift for one of your kids' playmates. Bubbles Took a Trip, a mostly true tale about an adventurous dog from the Canadian prairies. www.billyjmiller.com/bubbles or search anywhere books are sold.
Kate, I have a question for you. We talked about all of the things you love doing on the farm. Are there any chores or things that you don't like doing on the farm?
Watching Dad pull a calf.
Yeah.
That can be hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it scary?
It kind of.
Yeah. It's nicer when they can just have it themselves, hey?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Another thing we could talk about, I always like hearing about their friends, like whether their friends also farm or what's the living situation of a lot of your friends, Kate?
Most people live on acreages, and some of their parents help out on farms, like one of my friends, McKinley.
Yeah. A lot of them live in the country.
Just on acreages, they don't really farm.
Yeah, and it's a little bit different, right? It's different being on a working farm versus, having an acreage and basically just having to care for a big yard, right? So,
yeah.
Do you have any off-farm activities that you like to do?
I play hockey in Kitscotty, and we play softball in Kitscotty, and I play basketball through the school sports.
So you have lots of off-farm activities too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what does a typical day after school look like for you?
Usually come in, have a snack, and usually just kind of hang out. Sometimes if
Empty the dishwasher.
Yeah, empty the dishwasher. When it starts to get dark, we have to chase all the cows into the corral.
So that they calve close to home at night, right?
Well, yeah, and it's a lot
Yeah.
like warmer in there than
Yeah.
out in the other part.
Out in the pasture.
Yeah.
You and your sister walk in the house after school. Bubbles usually waits for you, doesn't
Yeah,
she?
she comes and picks us up off the bus and walks us back.
You know, Caitlin, it's amazing to watch for me if it's a day where I'm working from home for the day, as the afternoon gets later and I'm waiting for the kids to come home. I can look outside the front window and Bubbles will be sitting on the front deck. She sits there with, and I mean, Kevin might do the same kind of things, right? She sits there with her paws crossed
Mm-hmm.
and her paws hanging down the deck. And I swear she just sits there and she waits for the girls to get home and she'll hear the bus and then she'll walk out to the end of the laneway and she meets them off the bus. Like it's really incredible. And in the morning she walks them out to catch the bus too. I'm surprised she hasn't tried to get on the bus herself one day.
Yeah,
but
some people's dogs have like made it on the bus too.
yeah.
It's kind of funny.
And then the girls come home, you attack a snack, you do your couple of chores, and then it's on to whatever activity we're doing, it seems like.
I think talking about Bubbles is a perfect leeway into another activity or hobby that you and your mom and your sisters got to be a part of. And I want to just mention quickly, I believe that this book was a big caveat of getting my own Bernese Mountain Dog. Billy and you and your sister inspired me to get a Bernese Mountain Dog for my own farm dog. So my dog's name is Kevin, and it's a Bernese boy, and he'll be 2 in July. So he's very sweet. But can you tell us about the book that your mom and your sister wrote?
We wrote a book about Bubbles. Well, one day she just kind of followed Dad up kind of close to the highway. Like she usually just about always does that when Dad's driving away. She'll just kind of follow him. And someone drove by and didn't want her to get hit on the highway. So she picked Bubbles up and kind of was driving around trying to figure out whose dog it was, but couldn't find anybody. And the one person who would have known, like the one person they stopped at who would have known that it was our dog wasn't home. So she took her to Red Deer, and because she had like a kennel kind of thing there.
And so the book is basically the story about her wild adventure, how on earth we tracked her down and got her back, which thank goodness we did, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always scary when your loving and adoring pet goes missing, but Bubbles had quite the road trip. And
Yeah.
your sister and your mom and you all wrote this in a book during COVID, correct?
Yeah.
That is absolutely right. Yeah.
So to be 10 years old and a published author is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Do you have any future plans of more books to write?
Well, none that are really like officially gonna happen, but one time Pippi, my little kitten that I got for my birthday, climbed up like in the engine of the car, kind of under the car, and made it 3 hours away to the lake. And we were just sitting, I think, I'm not sure, we might have been playing like beanbags or something. And Pippi comes crawling out from under the camper. And for the rest of the time we were there, he was sitting by the campfire and he was eating chips and yeah.
We had to babysit Pippi at the lake. Yeah. So another little wild tale happened. And we kind of think that we should
make a book
probably
about
maybe
it.
write another kids book because these funny stories seem to happen to,
And when,
farmers.
I think it was Cheese or Wink who I think when Wink got stuck in the grain dryer, we had to go in there and rescue him. Like we had to climb into the grain dryer. And there was like me, I was trying, Dad was trying, and one of our neighbors, Rylan, was trying too. And there was a whole bunch of people in there trying to get Wink out.
guys could have a whole library of the hijinks of the Miller family pets.
We could. We really could. And we're starting to think about that. And so Kate and Madeline's dad and I, our farm is called South Miller Farm. And so I just keep ruminating on, a book series called The Adventures of South Miller Farm. Has a really nice ring to it. And I think about that, and it could include a whole bunch of kids' books about co-authored or authored, quite frankly, by Madeline and Kate, talking all about the wild stories that happen to farm pets. Because, I mean, it can't just be our farm, And it's funny, Caitlin, I've often talked to so many parents who try to advise their kids, with farm pets. You never really know what's going to happen to your farm pet. Like, sometimes you have them for a week, sometimes you have them for a year, but you don't often have them for more. I mean, dogs are different, right? But especially when it comes to farm cats or barn cats, we would often tell them, don't get attached to them, don't name them, because, you just don't know there are a lot of predators on the farm and stuff.
But they get named.
And they have a story and they have a personality. And yeah, I tell you what, so we could have lots of content there.
Yeah.
Love that. I love that. Kate, what are you looking forward to for summer holidays?
Well, going to Waterhen Lake where Pippi took a trip to. And with our cousins and grandma and granddad.
Yeah.
And
that's always fun.
Just not having to wake up early for school.
But you have to wake up and do farm chores instead, right?
Well, Madeline does because she's a 4-H steer. I can sleep in.
That's a good argument for you, Kate.
Yeah. So I told you.
I'm hearing it.
A favorite question I asked a lot of these younger kids, and I'm going to ask Kate again too, is what do you think it'd be like to live in the city, Kate?
I don't think, other than obviously stores being closer and stuff, and you can skip the dishes, I don't think I'd like it.
We do skip the dishes, don't we?
Yeah, you can just click a button on your phone and a Sunday just shows up at your door.
Isn't it magical? It's my favorite part about traveling.
I know.
That is incredible. Yeah. But other than that, if you lived in a city, you wouldn't love it? No. You don't get to see the stars as much, right?
Yeah. And there's too many buildings and people and car horns and, noise.
Too much noise.
Too much noise. Kate, one of the questions that we asked the other girls was about women in farming. And you obviously live on a farm and you work with your family and your mom is there and your grandma is there. And, you have all of these strong women on farms. One of the things you obviously know, your mom didn't get to grow up on a farm and neither did I. So there's kind of the stereotype of what a farmer looks like. And when I was growing up, I thought of the song Old MacDonald, an old man with overalls and a straw hat with some wheat hanging out of his mouth. That's who I thought a farmer was. But we know better now that anyone can be a farmer. So what would you say to somebody who said to you that you couldn't do something on the farm because you were a girl?
I would probably just say, I don't care, go away.
And do it anyways, because they don't know, right?
Yeah.
You can do so many things on that farm, anything you want, and anybody can be a farmer, right?
Absolutely. You can do more than, a lot of adults from the city could.
Yeah.
Right? You know that GPS you use in the cedar?
Yeah.
I know full-grown men who don't know how to use that GPS in the cedar.
Yeah.
That's right. And drive a tractor and feed the cows and chase the cows up. You think of all the stuff that you know how to do at 10 years old. It's pretty darn incredible. So that's what's nice about you guys growing up. In the time that you're growing up, you guys really can do anything that you want. Isn't that a cool thing to know?
Yeah.
We've talked about that before. Hey, the world's your oyster, isn't it? Yeah. Me and Caitlin talked about how we kind of made up our own jobs. When we were in school, when you were young, years ago, a lot of people were taught that, girls could be a teacher or a nurse but, Caitlin and I, Mom loved writing books, right?
Yeah.
and I love taking photographs. So I created a career. I created a job taking photos and writing stories about people.
Yeah.
And Caitlin created her job of being a podcaster and telling the stories of women. That's pretty cool, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, to brag on your mom a little bit, Kate, your mom is a big reason that I started my career because she was sharing the stories of women, and I was really inspired by her when I met her. And I wanted to also share these stories. So your mom makes good ribs and she's pretty inspiring.
Thanks for doing this with us today.
Mm-hmm.
You're awesome. This is your first podcast, not your last, I'm sure. Thanks, Kate.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to the Rural Woman Podcast. The Rural Woman Podcast is more than just a podcast. We are a community. A huge thank you to the Rural Woman Podcast team, audio editor Max Hofer, and admin support from Kim & Co. Online. A special thanks to our Patreon executive producers, Sarah Riedner from Happiness by the Acre and Carrie Munven from Blaystone Farms. To learn how you can become a Patreon executive producer or other ways to financially support the show, head on over to wildrosefarmer.com to learn more. Be sure to hit the follow or subscribe button wherever you listen to the podcast to get the latest episodes directly on your playlist. And if you are loving the show, please be sure to leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or any other platform that accepts ratings and reviews. You can connect with us on social media at The Rural Woman Podcast and with me at Wild Rose Farmer. One of the best ways you can support the show is by sharing it. Send this episode to a friend or share on your social media. Let's strengthen and amplify the voices of women in agriculture together. Until next time, my friend, keep sharing your story.
Hi, my name is Billy J. Miller. I hope you've loved this Farm Kids series on the Rural Woman Podcast. It has been such an honor co-hosting this series with my friend Caitlin Dubin. Did you know that I've created a career out of my greatest passions? I photograph and I write about the people and things that move me. I hope you'll visit my website, www.billyjmiller.com, and read up about my 4 published books celebrating farmers, farm life, and the amazing people on them.